Yeah, we were pretty puzzled about it.
Then one day, Ron Ortega brought a set of old photos home, and something even more remarkable occurred.
And I said, oh, look, look at this old photograph. And he came up to it and he goes, oh, there's me. I mean, I was like, just totally astounded, it just stopped me, cold. I mean, because how would he know that?
Gus would make more statements like that over the course of the next years. He would recollect episodes of his grandfather's life that even Ron could hardly remember. And he was there. Gus knew more about his grandfather than he should have. Is this evidence of reincarnation? How else can these children remember another life? The case files of Dr. Jim Tucker will yield more clues. Sri Lanka. On his way to investigate claims of reincarnation, Professor Haraldson and his translator finally arrive at the home of Dilukshi Nisanka. She's the girl who remembers having drowned in a river and is now reborn.
Dilukshi's case is one of the best, perhaps even the best, of the cases that we have studied here in Sri Lanka.
Professor Haraldson has conducted 2 major psychological studies concerning children who remember a past life. Surprisingly, their psychological characteristics are not much different from children who never report such memories, except for one crucial difference.
In the studies I have made on their psychological characteristics, you even find that some of these children tend to have what we call a post-traumatic stress disorder. The question is, how does it get there? They have not experienced anything particularly death-threatening in this life, but they have these images of having died in another life. This may be the reason for this apparent post-traumatic stress disorder.
Has Dilukshi really lived before?
These children, they are experiencing something real. It is psychologically real. They have these images of what they interpret as of a past life, and some of these are concerned with how they died in the alleged previous life. And that's usually a painful way of death. It's a violent death, unexpected death, sudden death.
Could Dilukshi just be making her stories up?
If they were making up some fantasies, then one would expect them rather to make up some fantasies of a better life or something that would be of some satisfaction to them. But to think about how they died is not really a pleasurable fantasy.
For the Nisanka family, Dilukshi's memories are painful. Every time they talk about it, they are reminded that Dilukshi does not feel part of their family. It is especially difficult for her mother.
She first started speaking of her previous life when we took her to Montessori preschool. She also mentioned when we went to the temple that her temple was in a different place. And when we had our meals and went to bed at night, she would again mention her previous life.
In fact, I had become so irritated by what she was saying that I beat her once.
I felt very bad about all of this. Dilukshi was constantly speaking about her previous family. It felt as if she was condemning me for being a bad mother, for not looking after her properly.
Could she tell us what it is that she still remembers?
There was a footbridge across the stream near my house. People from the village would walk across the bridge and bathe in the stream. There was a rock near my house where I used to play shop with my friends. I have always felt that I don't belong in my present family. Their furniture and belongings are different from the family I remember. I remembered very clearly the clothes and goods of my previous family. From my earliest memories, I felt like an outsider, and that I must do whatever I could to find my real family.
Which means these memories are real to Delukshi.
The day I died, I went to the stream to swim with a friend of mine. And then, somebody pushed me. I was in the water when I died.
When I was Grandpa Augie, I died in the hospital. When I went to heaven, God gave me a card. Everybody with a card like that is allowed to come back. I want it to come back.
The Ortega home in Colorado. Jim Tucker from the University of Virginia cannot just reject what little Gus has to say about a previous life.
There are certainly a lot of people who will simply dismiss this work because it disagrees too much with their assumptions about how the world works. But to dismiss something because it disagrees with your assumptions is really not very scientific. So we have this phenomenon, and we have the evidence that it's involved with this phenomenon. So the scientific approach is to explore it and learn all we can about it.
The Ortega home in Colorado. Dr. Jim Tucker is interviewing Gus Ortega. Gus claims to have lived before as his grandfather.
And how about your grandmother?
Yeah.
And were you a little boy when you were doing that, or was that when you were big? That was when you were big?
Is Gus telling the truth? Tucker has no way of knowing. That is why the most crucial information in many cases come from the parents. Jim Tucker interviews Kathy and Ron Ortega. Standard procedure.
And when was the next time that he said something that suggested he had information, that he knew things about your dad?
Gus said, I had a sister, but she died. She's a fish now. And we said, she's a fish? What do you mean? What happened?